Here we go. Happy Wednesday. We are on episode 12 of the When I Grow Up series. Last week we had an interior designer on, and now we have another one because I want you guys to be able to create the best possible space for winter because we're all going to be housed inside. So any interior design questions, I would love for you to add them. We're going to talk with Hannah Kirk all about vintage things and how to like warm up your space and bring in history and cool elements to maybe some of the more modern minimalism like Scandinavian designs that you guys are liking these days. So I'm just going to post a question here. Awesome. Hannah has joined. So Hannah, a little bit on her. She just bought a house a couple months ago, and if you've been stalking her stories like I have been, her designs are insane. And she's all about reusing stuff and not like, okay, now I have a new house, I want it to look all this way. She's repurposing some mid-century modern type stuff that maybe doesn't totally fit the style of the house that she wants to kind of have go across, but she's like reusing and implementing accessories to make things look awesome. So one, go stalk her if you haven't yet. And then two, I'm gonna make sure that we can all walk away with some tips on like how to bring in cool wooden items. Obviously, a lot of us like that minimalism Scandinavian style of stuff, but she has just like, oh, go to her stories. You'll love her. She's hilarious. So I'm going to bring her right up here. And there. Hello, everybody. Hello. This is going to be so much fun. Hi.
Can you get it to work?
Swear to God, I was like, I've never had issues going live, and then today I kept pressing like, go live, what's happening? And it wasn't into letting me do it, so we are live. I'm so excited, Hannah.
I know, I'm excited, I'm nervous.
I know, this is fun. Let's just like coffee chat, okay? No one's here, it's just you and I, but there's a ton of people here. So I'm gonna just post a question. If you have any interior design questions, post them here. Okay. Posted. So Hannah, you just bought a house. Like what? So adulty for being in LA. I mean, you know, people don't buy homes until they're like 40s or 50s unless they're celebrities. So the fact that you and your husband, partner, boyfriend, I actually don't know the boyfriend. The fact that you guys bought a house is like incredible. Can you tell me a little bit how fast that happened?
Bizarrely fast. Like
I know.
It was completely unconventional. I think we had been under the same impression that most people in our age bracket are, which is like, is that ever going to be a thing that we do? Yeah. I was obsessively like on Zillow, just like recreationally looking, you know, and I think it's so easy to kind of get lost in like, what would I do in that living room? Like, look at that old fireplace. So it was more of like a sport for me more than anything. And I would always email my boyfriend these links, and he would entertain me like, oh, that's a cool banister, but like that
he doesn't care.
The conversation wouldn't go any further. And then one day, and it was definitely like right in the center of quarantine, he reached out to me with a link, and he's like, do you want to go look at these houses? And I was like, what? Like, number one, the fact that he initiated it. Number two, that there was like a physical gesture behind it, that we were going to actually go and walk them. And we went, and it was kind of strange because with the homes we bought, it's a whole new community, and they aren't yet built. So it's kind of like you pick your model and you're able to personalize like the countertops and the cabinetry. And this community that we had just like discovered was in such high demand, which we also didn't know. And there was one particular floor model that it was so strange. Like when we first walked in it, I said to him, like, this is our house. And he's like, what? It felt like I had a That's So Raven moment where I was like,
oh my God, yes.
You know, I like saw our future, and he's like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like, this defies logic, but I think this is it. And it ended up being some really strange kismet where the one model that we had been interested in on this perfect lot with a beautiful view had fallen out of escrow. So we were able to, it was us in competition with one other person trying to make an offer. So we had seen them, long story short, we looked at the houses on a Friday, and that following Saturday, they accepted our offer. So it was fast. And
And
you
what's
hear,
great is appraisals, you're not dealing with like leaky attics and weird
Mhm.
basements that many of us, I know me and all of our friends are like house hunting, putting in offers, getting denied like 300,000 above asking price with like the best loan things you can find, cash. Like the market here in California is insane, as you all know. But I love that it happened and then Saturday accepted, everything went well, and you've been remodeling and styling. So I was just encouraging people to go stalk your stories because you have such like a sense of humor, and also I love that you just are showing us everything in this and how you're prepping this up. It's so cool.
my whole approach to sharing, and I should probably get better about like actually posting photos, but
No,
I think
whatever.
I've saved them in highlights. But I just wanted to provide other people with what I'm always looking for on
Same.
stories, which is like, I'm like, show me in that room. Like, I don't
Yes.
care if it's messy. Like, let me see the closet. So
Yes,
I'm hoping the transparency is being well received.
it is. I
Okay.
actually found you from you designed Catherine Shepard's spot before
Yeah.
they moved from Los Angeles to Portland or wherever. But the olive tree, the thing that got me and made me start stalking you was this beautiful olive tree and this most vintagely beautiful pot. And so then I was like, what the heck? She tagged you on the photo, and I'm like, what is this? And then I found your page, and you were, I think, had just started talking about the house as like a surprise, and then you're showing your vintage stuff, and I'm like, then I messaged you like, where should I get cool vintage stuff in LA? Like, I don't have the time to stalk like I used to as a single lady, where I'd go to like any antique mart and spend 7 hours just looking at all the things. And I was like, can you give me the best spots to find here in LA of like where to find the best antiques? And you gave such good insights. So I'm like,
Did
okay,
I? I was just thinking, like, oh my God, did I?
no,
I
you
tried to like
did.
try to get back to
You
everybody.
did, you did good. But so that's how I started stalking you, and now it's just been so much fun to see like how you're styling the guest room and different layers and elements and textures. And the biggest thing that I would like to get across today is like, one, you're so talented. Two, you call yourself what is it like? What do you call yourself? I need to reread.
Oh, expert generalist.
Yes, where you are really good at a lot of things and then extremely good at a few where you can like rise above, but like this well-rounded approach of how you started in interior design from so many different avenues, from working at ASOP as like a skin consultant to so many different things to now you're an interior designer. So
Mhm.
like I kind of want to skip over my usual questions of the when I grow up because I'm bored of them. I need to like reinvent this live in that sense because I'm like, okay, I get it. Everyone's getting it. We can all become whatever we want. And I feel like I hashed that idea out in my mind. But now I want to like pull in your expertise and get some quick nice tips and tricks on like how do we warm up our spaces on a budget with cool vintage items that maybe we can't see their potential initially, but there's like tips and techniques and things to like make them fit. Are you getting anything from
Yeah,
this?
I
Do you
know,
know where to
absolutely.
start?
Absolutely. Well,
Okay, good.
for some reason I feel called to share this. Someone recently said to me, like, I'd love to work with you, but I can't afford like expensive stuff. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh no, like I hope that's not what I'm giving off because
Yeah.
everything I do is always so mindful of like how to do it on a budget.
And sustainable too.
Sustainable, yeah. I just think that there's so many ways to create beauty without rushing to your local Pottery Barn. No offense, but there's
Yeah.
ways to really weave in high and low and create this really elevated space without just completely like taking out a loan.
Yes.
And
Yes.
um, I think for a lot of people, it's frustrating because they'll see other people like, how come I never find stuff at thrift
Yes.
store? I hear that a
hmm
lot. Um, and it's so funny because, I mean, just the concept of me describing my method of shopping, because my whole life, like, my grandma's always commented on how bizarre I am, like when we go into a store, which I didn't know was a thing until she brought it to my attention. And she's like, you just go in and you scan. She's like, I
Yeah.
just see your eyes scanning. She's like, you don't touch anything. You don't even like approach a shelf very closely. You scan and then approach. And so,
Oh.
I can't help but like ask myself, like, what am I actually doing there? Because I didn't
Yeah.
realize I was. And I think a lot of the time what I'm doing is scanning first for color.
Okay.
Um, so typically, like I have a pretty in-depth understanding of what my own aesthetic is. So things like anything wood, I'm usually drawn to. Any type of ceramic Any like natural weave, so any baskets, those are things that I often will like immediately gravitate towards. And I think just having little categories like that really help you on your quest to like leave with a treasure, because a lot of the time you're being asked to look at so many different things, you almost don't see anything at all, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Um,
Like my husband cannot go vintage shopping with me because it's just like crazy. He doesn't know where to start, which I totally get. So I like how you're saying categorize. These are the things I like. These are what I'm usually drawn to. So when I go into a store, I'm going to hit those spots first. I like that.
right. And then obviously afterwards you can just kind of wander, but I think if your mission is to leave with something special and you're kind of in that mood to treasure hunt, I think first, yeah, giving yourself categories usually increases your odds of leaving with something beautiful.
Yes.
Another thing that I always express to people is, I know it sounds so simple in nature, but it really helps when you remind yourself to imagine it not in that environment. You know, so if you find some weird ceramic thing, typically the questions, at least that I ask myself, is this cool? You
Yes.
know, there's like
Same.
this self-doubt present in your shop because you're like, is anyone going to understand this? Like, is this a weird, like, would I put this strangely shaped vessel? And typically in my experience so far, every time I've like left without it, I get home and I'm like, I
You're
should have,
bummed. Yes.
you know.
Yes. So, okay, so have you always been thrifty? And like my story, we grew up going to rummage sales and Goodwills and Salvation Armies and like vintage markets to find cool things. My family is totally that way. One, to be frugal and sustainable and like recycle, reuse, and not always go new Forever 21 vibes, but
Right.
like give new meaning to old things, right? So have you always been that way, or did you kind of like slowly stumble into the vintage vibes?
Always been that way. My
Cool.
mom, she
Yeah.
like has a booth at an antique mall. Like that's just who she is. Um,
Cool.
So yeah, no, it's always been a part of me. But what's been interesting is like when I was younger, and I feel so embarrassed to say it now, I remember feeling shame if I was like, oh, I went to
Oh,
the,
totally.
because in elementary school, people are at limited too. Like,
Hmm.
it's a totally
You, but
different
yes.
ball game. And then suddenly the coin flipped, and now it's like you got to get there quick because all the things at Goodwill are gone.
Yeah.
All the cool stuff.
Uh-huh.
So it's definitely always been like a common thread in my life, but I think something happened, and I hope it's more for sustainable reasons rather than aesthetic that people started to catch on.
Yes.
Um, but even something like just basic mason jars, a lot of the
Hmm.
time they have full sets at Goodwill. You don't have to go and buy a new pack at
Yeah.
Target. Like,
And it's
um,
glass. It's easily clean. Yeah.
right. So I understand if you're not wanting to go buy like a blanket or a pillow at a thrift
Oh,
store, like,
same.
but in
Skip those
regards to
sections.
like surface things, it's just you can also give them such a facelift.
Hmm.
I think anyone on Instagram has probably recently seen that like dirt method where you spray paint a vessel or some type of ceramic good with black matte spray paint, you rub dirt on it, and it gives it this ancient, distressed like look that you could find 4 times the price. But I don't know,
Yeah.
I also am really romanticized by the idea of having that story to tell. Like
Yeah.
someone saying, where'd you get that? And I'm like, oh, I found it at this weird flea market and I spray painted it. It just, I don't know,
Yeah.
there's something warmer and more human about that.
Yeah. So let me tell you what she just said casually, like everyone knows this. We don't know this. So
Oh, we
what
don't.
she does, no, you see, this is your industry, and this is why it's nice to talk to someone that has no idea what that means. Basically, you go find a vase. Let's just say it's this IKEA vase that every single one of us have. Kind of boring, kind of vanilla, needed it for a reason, and now it's here because it's like, I don't want to get rid of it. So let's just say I have this. She's saying that you could spray paint it black, get some dirt, literally dirt from your yard, and rub it on it, kind of like distress it, let it dry, and then it looks incredible. I wish I would screenshot the latest one that you did, but if you guys go to her Insta, you'll see it somewhere in there. It just looks like this storied item that could have been in Pride and Prejudice on their mantle. And Mr. Darcy looked at it once. Like it
Yeah.
looks so vintage. It looks so cool. And it literally just transformed kind of an ugly looking vase before. And then you've done the same thing to like bases of lamps. And so that's a good idea. Do you have any other things like to reinvent an item you find at a market?
Well, less about reinvention, but Catherine actually, she's in Portland and she's been on this quest because she moved into this extraordinary, like, historic home.
Cool.
And she's collecting vintage brass and gold candlesticks. And I told her, like, don't be afraid to step into like your Goodwill because you always find those there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
even if they're like tarnished silver or whatever, they make such like high quality gold spray paints now that you would never know were actually like, you know, patinaed brass.
Yeah, totally.
There's also something called rub and buff, which you can find like at any general like hardware store.
Okay.
And it's as simple as like getting a cloth and rubbing it on there, and you can do it on chandeliers. Like even IKEA, that's like a really cost efficient place to get light fixtures. So whether it's ceiling pendants or lamps, and you can distress it to make it look like this ancient, like, you know, historical lamp, but all you did was change the color.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm just looking it up. So it's like a little tube and you rub it, buff it off, almost like a stain-ish for wood, but instead for, okay, cool. I like that. I'm all about the thrifty stuff. Like I would go to Goodwill's in high school and college and find like a desk and, you know, like blah, 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 like reupholster the chair, put a different thing on the top, stain the wood, sand it down, go full on, like whatever I could do to just get my hands dirty. And like you said though, circling back, it was not cool in like middle school to be like,
It
oh my
wasn't.
God, I got this at garage sale. And then in high school, everyone would be like, love your shirt. Oh my God, those shoes. And I'm like, ah, Salvation Army, Goodwill, a rummage sale. Like it became cool to be thrifty. And then, I don't know, kind of like went backwards again in college. It's like, wait, you're not wearing YSL? Like what's the issue? And then now it's back like, okay, it's cool again.
Yeah,
But
and like some of my favorite, not just spaces, but even outfits, but I think the same goes for creating any room that looks elevated. It's usually a combination of both. It's
yeah,
high
totally.
and low, you know, and I think a lot of the times people are reluctant to just like do it and like like you said, buy that weird chair with the amazing like body and the terrible upholstery and just give it a chance because 99% of the times it ends up being your favorite piece in the room.
Yeah. So can I ask you a question? I'm having this issue internally of like, I want to be minimalist in the sense of I don't want to keep adding. I want to repurpose and I want to look in a room and maybe shop from somewhere else in my house to like restyle the place, right? So like when you're at vintage places or you're out shopping for new items, do you have that internal battle of like, is this because I want it? Is this because I need it? It has a utilitarian purpose in one of my rooms. Or could this sub out for an accessory I've had for years and I'm sick of and I could donate that? Like, are you conscious of how you're like cycling stuff in and out of your place? And I'm sure you've thought about this moving into a new spot and moving out of an old spot, but.
I mean, I probably was the worst person in the world at this a couple of years ago. Because you know it's more of like an adrenaline thing where you like stop in Target and you're like,
Dopamine.
I need this wicker basket, and you don't. It's just
You
like
don't.
the art of, I mean, the thrill of like the find. You just want to leave something, and I started to just pay attention that those are usually the items that I get home and I'm like, where do I put this thing? Like it's constantly moving around the house. You know, it never finds its home, and to be honest with you, like when we were packing up to move here is when it really sunk in for me. Like this is now more of a burden than it is like a joy. Yeah, I was just like suddenly had all this stuff that I felt nothing about, you know, and then I also felt this guilt of like, well, I just bought that. And I realized like the only way to avoid feeling that again is to get really mindful about anything that I bring in this front door, you know?
Yeah, totally. Like, does it spark joy, the Marie Kondo vibes of like, oh, it's hard though. I get what you're saying because I'll be at spots and I'm like, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. It looks like like it's just so cool. And then I think through my rooms in the house and I'm like, no. Okay, if I bring it home, will I find a purpose? Or is it gonna sit on a shelf like you said?
Are we supposed to be reading?
I just saw that last one.
No, please don't acknowledge it. That's my boyfriend.
He's really funny. I like it. That was good. Ignoring, but love it.
Oh my gosh, that's been like, okay, the cat highway thing, maybe we should address it.
Fine, address it. Let me read it. So her boyfriend said, thoughts on how to incorporate cat highways into, I can't even say this with a straight face, into a stylish home.
You can't. That's the answer. You can't.
Okay, so we're not going to address the cat highway. Never heard
No.
of it. My husband just texted, "Do you want sweet green or tender greens tonight?" Both. Thank you. Just kidding.
Well,
Um, okay. So yes, we're trying to figure out how to be like smart about what we're bringing into the home.
no, just don't
I
forget.
mean, this is great. This is like the comic relief I needed after a really stressful morning. Um, okay, so mindfulness, vintage vibes. Where are you going? Like Goodwill, I'm feeling is overpriced. Shopping there my whole life as an avid, thrifter. I feel like in California, it's aggressive. Like I could buy these things new at Target, and also Target gives them all of the stuff, and so ignoring that, but like where else are you going? Are you searching online? Like what's your search term if you're trying to find something new? Like vintage mall, antique things. How do we find cool spots in our cities?
Okay, so I honestly can't really speak to the online shopping of it all because
No, no,
for
no, not online. Just
yeah,
like,
I just
yeah,
feel like when I'm in the mood to like go antiquing, I need to like physically be rummaging, you
yes.
know?
But how
Otherwise,
are you finding those
how am I
places to
finding it?
rummage? Yes,
Um, okay, so where we live, we have pretty limited selection in regards to like the Goodwills, like
yes.
in thrift stores. When I lived more like central LA, there were um the same kind of stores, so they're like Goodwills and St. Vincent de Paul. That's like
Hmm.
a big warehouse downtown.
Okay.
Um, but I'm like very much so a fan of antique malls. So
Yeah.
I think it's something people don't really think to look up when they're like, I'm in the mood to thrift. They'll usually look up like thrift stores.
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't think that they have antique malls, but I think you'll be surprised. They're usually in strange parking lots that are very unassuming. Um, but I don't know. I think the nature of an antique mall is nice because it is a little more curated. Typically, the way it works is people will rent a booth. So you often find that you gravitate towards one vendor, where you
Yeah.
can often feel like, okay, they usually, like for me, I really like African elements. So
Hmm.
there's certain booths at our antique mall where I know that they tend to introduce those.
Cool. Okay.
Um,
And when you're saying that, like when I used to think antique malls, I'm like, oh, it's going to be like a $50 vase for maybe something I could find at St. Vincent's and make it look better. But really, there are a range of high lows at these vintage places. Like maybe it truly is something that costs what it costs because it should. And
mhm.
then you're also able to find good deals there, right?
Yeah, no, it's an absolute combination. And sometimes you will find some like dated thing that's like made out of marble or whatever. And it is something you're maybe you're more apt to spend on because it is this like
Yeah.
testimonial to this time in history. Usually
Hmm.
that's not the shopping I'm doing.
Okay.
But you'll find a combination of both.
Yeah.
I do think location has a big um, say in what the price point is going to look like because there's some really nice ones on the west side, but you find everything you're looking for, but
Yes.
all of it's completely out of your price range.
Yes. That's what I've been finding. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Someone just said Rooster's Relics. Have you been there?
Oh my gosh, Rooster Relics. Yes, I have. So that's this very strange like place you'd never ever have heard of. It's like down this dirt road in the
Okay.
suburbs. It's out in
That
San
already sounds like what I want.
and it's perfect. And what's so cool about it, those two tall vessels that I have in the house? They're like
I
distressed.
do. I do know. Yep,
That's
I
where they're
stalk you
from.
so hard. Yeah, okay, cool.
So it's
Um,
it's interesting in front. So it's literally a dirt road, and you pull off, and you have this feeling of like, is this it? And then yes, it is. You pull up. There's all these like large pots, those like pot belly little fire pits from Mexico. And I forgot the
ooh,
gentleman's name, but he literally gets them from Mexico, and he gets shipments like every 4 weeks. I think, and maybe it's not 4 weeks. So the whole outside is just like this.
we're gonna say a look vibe.
Yeah, but mostly focus on like pottery and like
Hmm.
large pottery.
Wow.
And then inside there's this little like antique thrift mall, and the first time I went in there, I just kept looking at my boyfriend like, where are
Are
we?
we
Like,
gonna die? Yeah.
yeah, are we gonna die? But also, if we do, I've established that I'm dying in heaven. Like it was just incredible. I found this like broken David statue.
Oh,
The,
I'm dying for, yeah, I've been looking
yeah,
on,
like the a
I've
bust.
literally been stalking busts
Mm-hmm.
on OfferUp, LetGo, eBay, Etsy, Instagram, Facebook marketplaces. Like they're all the same. And so I've been looking for one that's out, and I'm like kicking myself for when I've been in Europe or whatever, like not getting those tourist looking ones. Because yeah, they look touristy there, but here they're actually cool. Like not everybody
Right.
has. Okay, cool bus. That's what I need. I'm gonna go there. I like it. Rugs. Where are you finding cool rugs? Because I have spent hours scrolling online and I hate it. I'm textile like you. I like touching and feeling. So home goods, like stock home goods, there's a ton in our area. But it's great. But I'm also like looking for that specific rug, but I don't want to spend 1,300 on it, right? So like
Mhm.
have you found any secret spots in LA that you love that you trust for rugs?
I mean, they have an amazing selection when you go to like the Roseville flea market, but
Oh yeah, that's not open. Mhm.
it's not open. So there's that. But if you're looking, I mean, this is one specific category and it's like Turkish rugs.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay, perfect. The most amazing man that I will advertise to anybody because he is so passionate about what he does. His name is Mehmet. He runs an Etsy shop called Turkish Rug Empire. Turkish.
Ooh,
He's on Instagram as well.
all of
And
you can follow that. Love it, love it.
you'll follow it. He is the most amazing man. Like he has stories where he shows you the whole process where they like not refurbish, but they'll clean and it's this whole intricate cycle.
Whoa.
But he's so
These are
passionate about it that whether you need a rug or not, you're just drawn to his artistry, you know?
Oh shoot, this is not. I hope he does a Black Friday sale. I'm on a budget. This
Well,
is
here's the
amazing.
thing. He constantly, like, if you go to his Etsy, they're always 60,
These are
70% off.
great.
They're
Yeah.
beautiful, and you can specify that you need an area rug or a runner, or like several clients of mine, we've gotten rugs from him that otherwise, if you found that same rug online, it would have been 4 times the price.
And like La Brea Rugs is where all the hot celebs are getting their rugs. And it's
Mhm.
like, I looked there once just dreaming, like, what would
I
it
mean, it's
look like?
painful. The prices are
It's so
painful.
painful. Yeah.
Um,
Um, Kate, we're getting some questions, so I want to make sure we hit them. Where, and this I want to know too, best place to find real/fake houseplants?
oh, this is a passion project of mine.
Good.
Um,
Share
so
the love.
I used to have a green thumb. I had like a 30 by 30 garden plot in Topanga Canyon. I had 57 house plants. Like it was my thing. And then we got cats. And it was like,
Oh.
I felt like I was witnessing a murder every hour. I was like, no,
Were
it'd
they
be like
eating them?
knocking them down, yanking the soil
No.
out, just shattering them so the actual like root congregation was completely
That
destroyed.
sounds like Harvey and our plants. We used to have, yeah, same thing. Our
And
fiddly
it's
fig.
like you feel it. Like when you
Hmm.
walk there and see it like in shambles, you're
It's
like,
a death in the family.
it
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
So I had 57 in one short summer. Um, and I realized, well, uh-oh, like I'm gonna have to figure this out. And
Yeah.
I mean, for someone who was so devoted to real plants, like the idea of a fake plant like freaked me out,
Ooh,
you
yeah. It's
know?
like shopping at Pottery Barn versus getting something at a vintage mall. I get it.
Right. I
Yeah.
just felt like a fraud.
Totally.
Um, but then I started to learn, just like through working with clients, a lot of people don't have a green thumb, so I needed to figure out good alternatives either way.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, it kind of became a sport. Where are the best places to find them?
Have you
So,
ordered online? If not in LA, which I know a lot of us are in LA watching, but
I mean, I hate to say Pottery Barn just because the price point is very high for their faux
yeah.
florals. But some of my favorite stems, like they're like large, you put them in a tall vase, they're from Pottery Barn. And I just justified that as like, instead of buying a ton of like kind of okay stems, I'm just gonna pull the plug and get
Okay.
these and have them,
Yeah. Forever. It's so true.
and I know myself and my attempts to be like, how about these ones? No, I could do better. It's gonna add up and be more than just getting the right one. So
It is so
in
true.
regards to like stems, I do think it doesn't hurt to go there, but Hobby Lobby, I mean, not to get too political, I don't like to promote them too much because they don't really support,
Yeah.
communities that I do, like the gay
Yeah.
community. They're pretty actively against it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do get faux stems there.
Okay. You're like
I know, I'm just like, oh, like I don't want
Hobby
to be like
Lobby.
promoting anything that doesn't mirror my same like
Right.
value scale. But they have some, and then World
Oh my
Market,
God,
their
that's
price point
cheap.
is significantly lower. They have some really
Yeah,
good faux eucalyptus. Um,
I
I
like
do,
that.
I always tell clients though, when you're looking to get like a substantial, whether it's from 3 to 6 feet, any like large size faux plant, you're going to like expect to pay more than you
Yeah,
think you will. So for someone who's never bought a faux plant, it's always a little jarring, like it's how much.
yes.
Um, but it's something like now they make faux plants with UV protection. So they're not going to fade and turn that 90s like, seafoam green.
Yeah.
So it's a one-time purchase. You're not
Yep.
going to have to worry about buying soil or the maintenance if it dies. So to
Mhm.
me, like getting a good faux plant, you are going to pay more, but to me, it's such a staple of the room.
And thinking on that too, I feel like those are resellable. Like if you get an olive plant and in so many years you get sick of it, I kind of feel like those hold their value, right? So you could throw it on an offer up slash let go or wherever, or repurpose it in another project just fine because, if they are having that UV protection, maybe you aren't losing some of the color quality and you can kind of give it another life somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely. And you see even a lot of the outdated faux plants, if they're substantial in size, like, some of the older, like 6 to 8 footers, you still see those on offer up. I think a lot of the
Yeah.
time people are looking to fill whatever, a vaulted room, and
Yeah.
they're looking for scale rather than
Hmm.
quality. But
Totally.
to be honest with you, I've never really seen um, any tall, like new faux plants for sale because once people have them,
They keep
you
them
don't want to
forever.
get rid of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
I like that. Someone said, yeah, Pottery Barn, great stems, LA Flower Mart. So have you gotten faux plants from LA Flower Mart? I know I've gotten a bunch of fresh stuff.
Yeah, I've only gotten fresh stuff, and it's been a long time since I've been there.
Yeah, I miss
Um,
it. I think it is
but I would
open though.
imagine they'd probably, because you go there for events, and I think a lot of the times when people are making ornate garland, they do need
Hmm.
faux, so that's a really good option.
Okay, more questions. Do you have a hard stop? Do you have a meeting? Usually I have to stop, but like this is some good stuff.
No, I've left it open for you.
Okay, 5:10. Um, I want to know something, so I'm going to tell you the questions and then we can go through them. But lots of people loving your work, saying you're great, lots of social proof there, guys. So hire her. One person saying counter space in the kitchen. I always find myself buying so many things to keep out, but then I lose a lot of space. So what are your favorite countertop staples? One, I do want to hit this. How do you decorate adjacent large walls in a living room? I agree. How do you do that? And we can dive into other stuff later, but those are my big ones. So can we start with the large walls in a living room?
Yeah, and also please tell me if there are questions because I forgot that there was an interactive feature and have not read a single
I
comment.
usually don't. I usually like to just treat this as a hang and not address the audience, but they are passionate today, so I want
Yeah,
to
no,
make
let's
sure we hit
address
them.
them. Um, and then obviously it's your platform, so if you don't want to address them, whatever.
No, do you? I like it.
Um, so you want to address the first one?
Yeah, living room walls, large walls. There's like a few things that us non-designers do, and it's throw like canvases up or 3 images or whatever. But what's your go-to?
Um, always mirror. Always a mirror on some wall because here's the deal. I think when you have a big room and big walls, a lot of people get super frame heavy. Um, so typically what I see is I think right now everyone's a big fan of the gallery wall, um, which is great. I think you have to be really disciplined with you're either committing to all black and white photos or all color. That's a
Hmm.
conversation I have a lot. It seems like such a minuscule detail, but it makes such a visual difference when you walk in and there's a variation. It's like your eye doesn't know where to land,
I agree. Yeah.
so
Hmm.
um,
There we go. Yes, black and white versus color have one or other, but not both. Okay, next thing.
right. And I feel like the black and white just allows you to dance with color throughout the room in a more free way. But anyway, so a gallery wall, I feel like I have to mention that because everyone is like has that on their to-do list. Um, and if you do that, and then you have a wall adjacent to it, I always like to talk about doing a mirror because all of a sudden gallery walls you're seeing in grids of 6 and 9 and it's expansive, it occupies all of the room, so all of a sudden if you have a big scale print above the couch it's just a lot of frames,
Hmm.
um, which just ends up feeling really top heavy, you know,
Yeah.
because typically you're finding white mats with black frames. So a mirror is great for so many reasons. I mean, one, it's going to have an effect on the natural light in the room. And then two, it just creates this illusion of depth that you otherwise would be lacking if it was just frame city, you know?
Okay. So on that, are we bored of the circle mirrors? I know like 5 years ago they got so hot and like the gold circles. Are we still okay with those? Have they phased out of our designs? Like, are we moving to rectangles again or vintage brass? Like, where are we going with the mirrors?
About like 6 months ago, I had this conversation with a friend, and I said, we're on the eve of the circle mirror kind of falling flat. And
That's kind of how I've been feeling, yeah.
yeah, I think I said we're going to start to see a lot of ovals. We're going to see like half an
Ooh.
arch, which I get it.
Ooh,
You know, I
yeah.
think just with the idea of like social media, everything's so, you end up seeing the same thing 1,000 times.
It feels
Whereas
old
like,
too fast, yeah.
yeah, it gets old. So I don't want to rule it out because one thing I always speak to like clients and friends alike about is any good room has a combination of both like linear and round edges. And it's just like nature assumes the same shapes. You don't just have one or the other. So a lot of the time, I think couches by nature are quite rectangular. Frames are quite rectangular. So a lot of the times I end up either sneaking in a round edge mirror or a round edge like coffee table or end table. But I think that the rule of thumb when it comes to like the round mirror, if you want to avoid things looking super conventional, is explore the idea of hanging like wall sconces on either side.
Oh, I love that.
You know, or you can even get like a gallery. You've probably seen like picture lights. Typically, they're above a gallery wall. But they make really nice ones that are battery operated, so you don't have to deal with hard wiring, which is like, I was a renter my whole life up until now, so I always had to think about hacks, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't get into hard wiring, so even just adding a picture light over a mirror, it just elevates things in a different way and just creates a new illusion, so you're not just looking at this gold circle over the same black console table that everyone has from Target, you know?
Okay, I have to show you. Have you stocked on that note? What immediately came to mind? This is actually the only thing on my wish list this year, which I'm a renter. There's no reason I should be spending money on this, but Human Home, have you looked at their sconces? They have this, okay, I put it in the chat for you guys to stock them, but where is it? Let me see if I can scroll. Do you see this right in the center? This one, it's my dream. They have a ton of different types of ones where it's like, here, I'll try and show you more architectural vibes, but like I could see something like this on either side. Anyways, you guys can stock, but I like that. I like that. My mind is going. Human Home. You love them if you haven't seen them yet, Hannah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not familiar, so I'm gonna have to read through the comments after.
Yeah, they're pretty, I don't know, pretty cost effective for a lamp. But okay, sconces, mirrors. That's great. I feel like we answered that question. So counter space in the kitchen, this is huge. And I'm on the mindset of like hide everything I can that I don't use all the time. So like the toaster is hidden previously. Now I have a ton of cupboard space, so I can kind of like whatever. But like I try to hide the toaster. I'm trying to hide like any little appliances that I can until it's time to use them, and then I put them back. But like, where are you at on styling your counter? And like, do you want to show us your counter?
I might have to go check and make sure it's in order.
I know, like your toast and jam is out from the morning.
I know. Luckily, I'm not a breakfast gal, so we haven't eaten yet. But I mean, cutting boards, I feel like that's a no-brainer.
Okay, tell me about it. Like, are we layering 3 to 4 wooden different shapes and sizes against each other on the wall, or what's your latest?
Yeah, so a lot of the times, like my favorite, the stuff I'm drawn to are typically like this combination of shapes. So you have a really long one, then you have some facing upwards, and then you have like a round edge. I think it just creates this visual interest that kind of pulls you in. And I mean, I think the ultimate battle typically is, at least with living with my boyfriend, he's Mr. Functionality, you know, so
it's just there to look at. Yeah.
You know, I have to be mindful about us both winning. So something like a cutting board, my argument is set in stone because I'm like, well, what do you mean we use these? You know, so it's a way, and you can, I mean, Home Goods, Marshalls, they have such incredible cutting boards for really inexpensive.
Yeah.
So cutting boards are a no-brainer.
And they don't take up space too. I like that because this is the big question. It's like buying so many cool things to keep out, but then I lose a ton of space. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is going to require discipline. This is like something I've had to learn because I think typically the kitchens we tend to be drawn to are quite decisive and minimal. And then in our attempt to duplicate that, we end up overdoing it at our own
Okay.
house. And then we're like, I don't get why it still doesn't look like that picture.
Yeah.
Which is, why the cliche continues to be true, like less is more.
Yeah.
I think rule of thumb in any kitchen is 3 things: the presence of wood, the presence of greenery at some juncture, whether that's a little bushel, whether that's stems, and then some type of element, whether it be like brass, gold, or silver. I think
Okay.
the combination of those 3 things in any well designed, whether it's on a console table, on a shelf, you're going to find all 3 things. So as simple as like I don't know if you've seen that oil decanter I keep posting, it's gold. So something like that in a like patinaed brass little like a plant in a little brass planter and a couple cutting boards, and suddenly things feel cohesive and well intended and different. It's not just your standard stainless steel. And one question I always get is, can you mix the metals? And absolutely.
Okay, cool. So it's like a rule, but it's better when it's broken. Okay. Ending, and I think this will help all of us. I know that there's some warmth missing from my spaces, and the current place that we're in is very modern, new construction and all that. And so I know it. And then I go on Instagram, I go on Pinterest, and I'm like, this living room kind of looks like mine. So I look at how they styled the end table or how they added elements to the wall or whatever, and I try and do it. But I am not an interior designer, and I'm just going off of what I see. So do you have any tricks on, like, I don't know, looking at your room from afar? Obviously, we need to just hire you. That's the final answer. But like in the meantime, like do you go into someone's house and you look at the room, and are you rearranging to see if things look better? Are you pulling things away and putting them in a pile and then like restyling? Like, what are some easy things we could go into our living room and do like right now to like just level them up, if that makes sense? Or like maybe we shouldn't be going on Pinterest and Instagram for inspiration, and we should be going to nature. Like what are some things I can do to like become a better designer for my home?
Well, I mean, to answer the first question, I've done a combination of both. One of the first questions typically when I work with someone is, what are our non-negotiables? Like what is currently existing in the room that either has like, memories attached to it, what holds significance? Because I need to know what will not be removed so we can learn to work with it. What's the best tactic? I do think it's quite dangerous to spend too much time on Instagram, because then you become, you kind of end up feeling like you're never going to keep up. It's like a dangerous recipe. And then you could do something beautiful in your home, and then you're measuring it against someone who had something more beautiful. It's just a dangerous cocktail. But in regards to what can you do right now? I mean, one tip, which we already discussed, is really start to pay attention where the combination of linear lines and round edges exists, because a lot of the time you'll find that they aren't coexisting. You've done a lot of rectangles and squares and hard edges, and sometimes what you're just lacking is like a round edge. I don't know what the magic is behind like combining those 2 things, but that's a big one.
That's easy. I like that. That's helpful.
That's a big one. What else?
Well, you're thinking the round edge could be a vase, could be a mirror, could be a plant or a stem, like you said. It could be a pillow, could be like you've got this great African, I think it's you, that has like a wooden circle thing hung on a wall, which I never would have expected. I think it's you, but like in between some frames, adding like a circle wooden vibe. Or are you a fan of those weave things that hang on the wall? Are we sick of those? Are the
ones?
Like weaving thing? Why am I not thinking of this?
Like a woven wall hanging?
Yeah, that. Like, is that a type of organic vibe? Well, technically they've been rectangle lately though.
Yeah,
so
which is fine. And that's the thing. Like I'm not saying like swear.
Soft linens. Yeah, that's good.
Wait, what'd you say?
She said soft linens. I like that. Yep. Add that organic texture.
What else can we do? I really love the idea, and lately this has been a huge conversation point, is verticality, because I think a lot of people are very intimidated about going up. So a lot of the times, like when I'm working with someone, I'll suggest whether it be like a vase or a plant or stems or candlesticks, and like, are those too big? And typically when they're asking that question, I'm like, yeah, that's the one we have to get.
Cool.
Because everything, like typically for me, when I know something needs to change is when I walk in a room and everything is kind of fallen at the same height. And I understand that. It's like your first instinct is to design what's immediately in front of you. But a lot of the time your eye is like being asked to be pulled up. In a lot of like rental situations, you're not working with vaulted ceilings. So it
Right.
has to be more of like a mind game where you're creating pockets of verticality that otherwise wouldn't have been there.
Cool.
So like oversized candlesticks on an end table create this really Renaissance like gesture that like makes you want to lean in and ask questions versus your typical like, you know, round glass candle you find at Home Goods. So I think figuring out ways that you can bring height in is a big one.
Hannah, I have to post this after our live.
Yeah.
Have you seen when you said oversized candlesticks on a stool? You guys, I'm going to post this live on my Instagram like feed and then stories, but then after it, I'm going to post this meme video. You will die. It is like you know how they have those reels right now where it's a really beautiful song, like something, and then at the end it switches to like someone playing a flute terribly out of tune.
Right.
So it's someone like saw beautiful candles and wanted to remake them. And so it's like this beautiful song, beautiful candles, and then it went to the ones they created. And it's good.
Bad?
Yeah, they're really bad. I'll post it. It'll be a good laugh for you. But I do like what you're saying. It's like, okay, add verticality, oversize. If you're asking if it's too big, it's probably not big enough. And yeah, that's super helpful.
I do just want to say, like, it's not going to be comfortable. Like, a lot of the times, half the battle when I'm working with someone new is kind of inching them through those comfort zones, because a lot of the times you get used to a certain thing, and the idea of straying from that is intimidating.
It is.
Know? And rightfully so. So, but the interesting thing is that all the photos they send me for inspiration have these elements that they're afraid to take the punt.
They just want someone to say, yes, go. I agree.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And it's a vulnerable process. Like, by no means am I like pushing them off the cliff. But one thing that's really important to me is to kind of then show them the photos that they've shown me and identify. Like, I usually braille the photos and start to recognize what are their common denominators. So typically, like, another thing people are really afraid to do is use black, which is always so funny to me because they show me these photos with all these black accents, but I think not until you pick it apart and understand that that's the common denominator in the photo would you think to buy that black vase.
Right.
You know?
Totally. I
there's a
agree with you.
Yeah. But it's wild. Like, that's the other thing. So if you feel like in the living room you just want to incorporate something that doesn't break the bank, typically you should be looking if there's anything black, because it serves as such an anchor that you wouldn't first think. You know, a lot of rooms these days are quite light and airy.
Yeah, they are.
Neutral. But a black anchor only is going to make those whites look whiter and the neutrals look brighter. So it's not going to darken your space. It's, if anything, going to bring it, you know, to life.
I love that so much. This has been so helpful. I feel like we need to pay you for the amount of tips and tricks you've given us. We need to keep stalking you on Instagram. What else should we be doing? Like, is there anything coming up we should watch? Or just, keep sending you DMs with all of our questions on how to find cool vintage stuff.
Yeah, please reach out. And also, I think I'm just kind of a one-man band over here. And
same.
Yeah, well, 100%. I'm just straight up a one-man band.
Cool.
And so sometimes I have 90% of the time I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's helpful for people to be like, hey, can you share this? Or I'm curious. Like, I love the feedback because I am just floundering, you know? I half the time I'm like, what should I be sharing? Am I oversharing? Like, you know, there's always this like self-doubt sitting on my shoulder, like, cool it, lady. And I want to be of service, and I'm like so of the opposite mindset about like keeping my information guarded. I'm just like, how can I share?
Give it away.
Yeah. So
there we go. No, that's
my
fine.
battery was low.
Okay, so I agree with you, and I just want to commend you because you do a great job sharing on your stories. So I keep saying this, but you guys should follow her. It's like very natural how you share your information. But something I always tell my clients, because I do visual strategy and photography for them to help market to their dream clients, right? So I need this for myself, but when I do photography, I could do it asleep. Like I could literally be asleep and create a whole campaign for you and mood board it out and visual strategy. Like to me, it just sounds dumb to talk about it because it's obvious. It's what I do. It sounds like elementary. So I'm like, do people even get value from this? And that's the same for you in interior design. Like it just comes naturally and it's what you do every day where you don't think it's revolutionary. So it's hard to pick out what things are people going to be drawn to or not. And so just like what I do is talk to people outside of my field. What's something about photography you have questions about? Visual strategy, like what do you wonder? Because I don't know that because it's in my brain and I just need someone else to tell me, I don't know this. Tell me.
Right,
So
right.
when you were talking about the mud vase, no one knows that. You think everyone knows, but no one does. So yeah, I'll just keep sending you DM questions, giving you tips on topics. But what's helpful for you watching, you guys, is just ask her questions, like she said. Ask me questions on like visual strategy, photography, because what we think is obvious to you is not, and you need us to like help it. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, and one thing that both like warms my heart and breaks it is people often say to me in messages like, thank you so much for responding to me. And I'm like, well, first of all, of course,
Yeah.
but second of all, like because of the people reaching out and being interactive with me is why I even have a platform. So I'm
Yes.
like, I would never just turn like a blind eye. Like I'm so happy to have that conversation. And one of my favorite things in the world is when people show me like, look what I found today. And it's inspired by something we've discussed. It's just,
Yes.
I love it. I think people for the first time are really looking at their home in a different way and just being decisive about what's in there and not just putting, an end table here because you need a place to put a drink, but really asking yourself, like, how can I make this moment beautiful? And that to me is like, I love knowing that people are in their homes doing that.
Yes.
It's like so pure.
Oh, I love that so much. We did a long talk. I could see this becoming a series. I say this to all my guests, but I really truly do. Like you have so much cool insight. So I'm going to post all the ways that they can follow you. I'll post that funny meme for you guys to laugh. And Hannah, this was so much fun. Thank you for hanging out with me today.
Bye, Stephanie.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Send me DMs if you have more questions. See ya.